The story begins in the city of Valencia, where a fierce thunderstorm had paralyzed the entire city. Torrential rain pounded the streets, bringing traffic to a complete standstill. Vehicles remained motionless, and the citizens were stranded. Meanwhile, radio broadcasts issued warnings of an incoming violent storm, and the government urged everyone to stay in place for their safety. Among the many cars trapped in the gridlock was a woman named Sandra, who worked as the manager of Valencia Bank. Sitting in her vehicle, she called a man named Antonio, inquiring whether her name was on the list of employees being laid off from the bank. Antonio replied that he hadn't received any confirmation yet. Sandra, worried, told him that if her name did appear, he must keep it a secret. Eventually, Sandra braved the storm and reached the bank, where she immediately asked the remaining staff whether the alarm systems had been activated. A staff member named Mahi told her that due to the severe weather and traffic, most employees had not yet arrived, but things would hopefully normalize by the afternoon. At this point, one employee noticed that Sandra looked deeply troubled. Mahi revealed that Sandra's name was indeed on the termination list. Once inside her office, Sandra called Antonio again, and this time he confirmed that she was being laid off. Her heart sank, her job was gone. Before she could react further, armed gangsters stormed into the bank. Some wore explosive vests, and they quickly overpowered the staff at gunpoint. Meanwhile, Sandra was talking on the phone to her relative Joaquin, seeking help to save her position at the bank. But Joaquin made it clear he couldn't do anything. Suddenly, a thug named Gallego, along with his partner Jack, burst into Sandra's office. They tied her hands and feet and took her hostage. The criminals began their mission to crack open the vault and steal money. Not stopping there, they also started digging a tunnel through the bank floor, which they planned to use to escape with their loot undetected. The gang leader, Uruguayo, controlled everyone in the bank, ensuring no alarm was raised to alert those outside. However, he soon discovered that someone had pressed the emergency button. Enraged, Uruguayo viciously beat the employee responsible and threatened to blow up the entire bank with a bomb. A terrified woman begged for mercy, explaining that her child was waiting for her at home. Uruguayo allowed her to call her son, and even gave all hostages 1.5 minutes to speak with their families. But in truth, Uruguayo had no real intention of killing anyone. He simply wanted to instill fear. Eventually, the police received the emergency alert and deduced that the bank was under attack. Detective Domingo called the bank, but a gangster answered and warned that any interference from the police would result in the death of the hostages. The gang now demanded a car and a plane in exchange for the hostages' lives. Domingo said he couldn't approve that without permission from higher authorities. Later, Gallego told his boss that the escape tunnel was flooded due to the intense rainfall. They decided to wait 30 more minutes, hoping the water level would recede. During this lull, Sandra revealed to Gallego that she was being fired. To ensure her value, she told him about a special vault that contained a powerful secret. She said if he managed to open it, it could change their lives forever. However, Sandra made it clear she would only reveal the vault number if she received a share of the stolen goods. In a parallel storyline, we meet Johns, a politician currently in a coma at a hospital. His wife, Mariana, was by his side when she saw the bank robbery on the news. Panicked, she called Detective Julio, who hadn't yet heard of the heist. Mariana told him that her husband had a special vault in that bank, and if it were opened, Johns could be in serious trouble. Julio promised her that he would investigate. He informed Officer Ferran, explaining that he didn't know what was in the vault, but it must be extremely confidential. Back at the bank, Sandra showed Gallego a video where Johns could be seen placing a hard disk into vault number 314. She explained that years ago, a detective had exposed John's involvement in a massive corruption scandal, which humiliated him nationwide. To protect himself, John stored all evidence of his crimes, including details of government officials who had supported him, on that hard disk and locked it in the vault. Gallego, intrigued, offered Sandra a bag of precious diamonds in exchange for the vault number. Once Sandra had the diamonds, She told him the number was indeed 314. Uruguayo, meanwhile, called Domingo and demanded food for the hostages. He warned that the food must not be tampered with, as he'd eat only after the captives had eaten. Soon, Gallego saw that the water in the tunnel was rising quickly. He urged his team to complete their mission immediately. At the same time, police had surrounded the bank. To protect themselves, the gangsters forced bank employees to wear bomb vests, threatening that any sudden movement would trigger an explosion. Gallego made his way to the safety deposit boxes and told a colleague that box 314 belonged to John's. The colleague became suspicious, thinking Gallego had planned this all along just to steal that one box. He accused him of having ulterior motives. Gallego explained that Sandra had told him about the box, but the rest of the gang insisted he use the tunnel before it flooded completely. The gang gathered their loot and descended into the tunnel. The last man sealed the tunnel entrance using a table and a strong rope. One man swam to the end of the tunnel to check if they could exit. However, the current was too strong, and he barely made it back alive. Realizing escape was impossible, the gang returned to the bank after removing the table blocking the tunnel. The police were also preparing to enter the bank. Domingo called Uruguayo and informed him that the food had arrived, so the doors had to be opened. A thug went to open the door, and just as he did, the police received a sudden order to abort the mission. Why? Because corrupt government officials associated with John's were meeting to find a way to resolve the crisis without exposing their involvement. It was revealed that one of them had secretly hired Uruguayo to steal the hard disk from Vault 314 to protect his reputation. Officers Ferran and his team were furious upon discovering this unauthorized plan. They decided to bring in Detective Pablo, whom they trusted completely, and tasked him with retrieving the hard disk from the criminals and delivering it to Ferran. Meanwhile, the gang decided that as long as they had John's vault, they had the upper hand. They could use its contents to blackmail the officials. When Uruguayo learned that Sandra had told Gallego the vault number, he grew furious. He stormed to the bathroom where Sandra was hiding and began banging on the door. Losing control, he attacked Sandra, demanding to know what she got in return for giving away the vault number. Just then, Gallego arrived and began fighting with Uruguayo, angry that Uruguayo had hidden the existence of the hard disk from the team. Uruguayo finally entered the bathroom and found the bag of diamonds, but it was empty. He now realized that Gallego had given Sandra real diamonds, not cash. In a rage, he told the others that Sandra must have swallowed the diamonds to keep them from being stolen. On the other side, a gangster named Loco was trying to access files on the hard disk. But to his surprise, a chess game puzzle appeared on the screen. As soon as he made a wrong move, all data on the hard disk was permanently deleted. Loco tried everything to retrieve the files, but it was too late. Moments later, Detective Pablo took charge of the case and called the bank. Uruguayo answered, angry to learn that the bank was completely surrounded by law enforcement. He realized escape was now nearly impossible. But Pablo made it clear, he was in control now, and nothing would stop him from unraveling the truth.